Well, we've got an interesting one today. We are going to convert a 30 amp camper to a 50 amp camper. And nothing real orthodox about that, but not that big of a deal. So we'll take you along and show you how it's done. Come on. All right, so we got first thing we want to find out is how did Forest River run the power? I've got a supposition that they just run it underneath the camper, but Jason has taken the faceplate off of our panel here. We're going to take the breaker panel out and look and see what they did behind it. And like I said, I'm guessing we're going to see a big fat power cord go through a hole in the floor. On this camper back here, that is our bathroom, lavatory behind that door with the bathtub shower in it. And outside, where the power cord connects to the coach, it is right underneath the bathtub. But like I'm saying, I think it goes to the wall, and it goes underneath and comes across underneath and up here at the breaker panel. But once we figure that out, we'll disconnect inlet breaker panel, and we'll just, we have got to run new power cord. So we're going to be taking the wiring out that powers this 30 amp panel, and we're going to be putting in 6.3 to run 50 amp panel. Now I'm sitting here looking at this panel and I'm like, okay, this orange Romex right here should be the 30 amp. So where does that orange Romex go? So if you look here at the 30 amp breaker, which one is it? Right here. And if you follow the wiring to the wire restraints, you'll see that orange Romex. That orange Romex there is going to be our 30 amp supply.
Behind the furnace.
Okay, so it looks like they're... So I'm wondering if we... See, this is why I think it goes under the coach again. Because that slide out over there. It isn't running down a wall all the way around because we got a slide out in the way.
Keeps going.
So they do run it. Oh, they run it through a hole in the floor right there. Okay, so right here, they call that a horseshoe vent, and that is for a holding tank. So there's a tank right down here, and the vent for it's right here. And since that's the kitchen right there through the window, almost guarantee there's a galley tank right down there. So that would be a hindrance to drilling a hole in the floor and just running wire up that way. Otherwise it would be pretty simple. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna climb under there, we're going to release the underpinning, and then we'll just run our new wire the way they ran the old wire. Over here's our inlet right here on the back corner. And this is where about the bathtub is. Oh, that's not it. This is it. And right here on our little sticker, tells us 30 amp supply and all that. So that sticker will be not correct anymore. But we'll take this inlet off, put a 50 amp inlet on it, and run our new wire from here to the breaker panel. And then it'll be all downhill from there. Boy, they had a lot of sealing on that. Once you get your inlet out, then you just got your screw terminals here. On this version of an inlet, at least. We'll take them screws loose, and then we should be able to pull this right off the wire. And from what I'm seeing here, they were already loose. Look at this. Wire's not connected. That's our neutral. And there's our ground right there, and it's not connected. So whoever installed this didn't tighten it up, that's for sure. And that hot wire right down there that is still connected, look how discolored that copper is. It tells me that's been overheated. And a loose neutral, I don't know. Got some issues here that we're seeing. So it's a good thing we're going to be putting a new inlet in and running a new wire. Alright, there we go. Our inlet is off. And you can see this wire here. He's had some unhappy days. If I remember right, on the back of this cup here, there's a wire restraint. And that's holding onto that Romex. So we're going to need to... Yep, there we go. Well, and it's one of those disposable wire restraints that's not restraining very well. Okay, I guess that's what happens when you don't close it down all the way. But look at the discoloration in our copper. There's been some issues here. Alright, let's look in that hole and see what we got going on. Alright, so this is obviously underneath. Well, it's actually behind the bathtub and shower. But it really looks like the wire just goes straight down through the floor right here. Okay, so here's what we're doing. You've got this corrugated plastic underneath, and that's to help hold heat in, keep plumbing and holding tanks from freezing up in the winter. As you can see, Jason over here, he's dropping these aluminum strips that Forest River used to hold these panels up. Anyway, we just take this panel down, and then we should be able to do everything we need to do, because that slide out is going to, those cords going through the floor look like we're going to be about right there. Alright, so Jason over here has got the underbelly exposed, so we've got our black and gray tank here for the bathroom, and right over there you can kind of see some daylight in the corner. That's going to be about where the inlet in that Romex come through. Now it looks like that they ran the wire either around or across the tanks. So that's our fresh holding tank there. Alright. I am not seeing the Romex at all. So they must have it running across the tanks. But like Jason's already pointed out, we don't have to remove the old Romex. We just need to figure out how to run the new, so we can get the updated power supply to the breaker box. Alright, so we found a way. Took a little looking around, but that's part of doing an upgrade. But we found where the gravity fill hose for the fresh water tank, it goes through the sidewall, and then once you're inside the coach, it's in the cabinetry, and then it goes through the floor. And then underneath the floor, it runs over to the fresh tank. It runs over about a foot, fills the fresh tank. So we can run our 6.3 through that hole. So we're gonna run it from the inlet down around our tanks to that hole in the floor, run it up through that hole in the floor, make a hard left turn, and then we're right there at the breaker box. We'll show you what we're talking about. Alright, so here is our propane detector on the floor. And then right here, we've got our wire. Got our wire right here. Right through the hole with the gravity fill. So all we got to do is make a left turn right here, and we'll be behind our panel. So here's our cable, and that will be what we hook into our breaker panel with. So now we got to run it through and around our tanks underneath and get over to where the inlet is. So this right here is what we're dealing with. It's like a snake. So we've got that through the hole in the floor up to the breaker panel, and now we've just got to finesse that around and beside holding tanks and get it over to where the inlet is and run it up to the inlet. So once we do that, the hardest part of this battle's over. Yes. And then after that, it'll be all mental. Okay, here's the long and the short of what we've done. Very hard to film any of this, so we do the work, I'll come back and show you what we've done. So anyway, the 6.3 is right here, and it's running up through a hole in the floor right back there. That hole in the floor is behind the shower tub, and it runs right up to where the inlet is in the hole on the outside wall. I'll show you in a second. But we've got it running through here behind these tanks, up over mounting bracket here, and then you can see it just runs the length all the way down there and disappears into the underbelly, and it goes through the hole in the floor where you saw earlier, where the gravity fill hose goes through the floor. So we've got the 6.3 run from the breaker panel all the way to where the inlet's going to be on the outside wall. Alright, so right here is where our inlet's going to go, and here's our wire. So we were able to run right up through the floor with a hole that already exists for other wires, and so now we can wire in our inlet. At the other end of the wire, we can wire in this to the breaker panel, the new breaker panel, and we're going to have to run all the wiring from the old panel to the new panel, and all the DC wiring from the old panel to the new panel, and then install a power converter. So got a lot to do still. Alright, here, unpackage that. I'm working one-handed. Let's see if she fits. Dang, son, look at that. Alright, so I'm going to work on cleaning this junk and debris off our fiberglass here, and then we should be able to go ahead and wire up the inlet.
You got that light?
Alright, so here we are. The other chapter in our 50 amp upgrade here. You have to swap out your breaker panel, because this panel right here is only a one leg panel, meaning we've got a 38 amp main and it feeds this leg. Well, what we need is a two leg panel, so we can have two legs of 50 amp. So we're going to have to take this panel out here and replace it. And right now Jason's removing all the DC voltage wiring. Well, currently he's taking the converter out. And we've just discovered that whoever installed this converter put a deck mount converter in a slip-in converter setup here. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this guy and we're going to go plug it in and see if we've got 13.6 volts in it. If this is producing the proper voltage, that's one less thing our customer doesn't have to buy today. But we're going to remove this panel, take the breakers out, take all of our Romex wiring that's coming in the back of it here, and we're going to run that back out. We're going to have to take out our fuses out, our DC wiring out, and wire in a completely brand new breaker panel and fuse panel. That's all we got to do. So if you look at the colored Romex on the back, all the white Romex is your 15 amp.
Yeah, and that yellow is going to go to a 20.
Your yellow is a 20.
And the orange is nothing.
And the orange will be eliminated. Yep. So, but as far as what breaker, for what, I mean, that's just...
That won't matter.
I think you're right on with that. So right now Jason's got all of our neutrals loose. He's got all of our grounds loose. Now he's going to take all of our hots loose. And then we can take the breakers out of the equation so we have room to get our hands in there. And then we're going to remove those wire restraints off the back. And then get those guys snapped back into the new panel. Alright, so as you can see on these restraints, it's just two little clasps. If you get pliers in there, you can just clasp it and then it just pops right out. Alright, so we got all of our Romex out. And then we can just push our ground wire out. Alright, now for the DC side. Alright, so Jason's pulled all the fuses out. And those two 40 amp fuses there, we can just leave those guys in there. Those are for the slip-in converter. That's to protect the slip-in converter. The deck mount's already got fuses on it. So the converter that somebody replaced and put in there, it was double fused. Alright, so there's all of our circuit wires he's pulling out of their terminals. And now it's just a matter of just pulling it out the back. And there we go. There's the spaghetti bowl. Alright, so we'll get the new panel out and we'll just wire it up the way we took it apart. Alright, so Jason's going to the tedious task of removing these plastic wire restraints. They're like a little one-time use deal. And the reason being is because the new breaker panel doesn't have holes. And I was going to cut the end of the old 30 amp Romax off. You need to sharpen those things.
I need to throw them away.
Use your teeth. Alright, so he's just cutting that off because we don't need that Romex any longer, so it'll just be hanging out in there. But we will be using those 4 white ones and that yellow one, because those are circuits. And then we'll be adding a circuit because this customer is going to have us install an incinerator toilet, which will be a whole other video. But Jason has already run the Romex, which is a 20 amp circuit, for that toilet, and it should be in that hole in there. Yes. We'll wire that into the breaker panel with everything else. So for you guys at home watching, on this new panel at the top of the DC side, flip it over. Our battery and our converter will wire in here. So if you look here, the red and white wire, that's going to be our battery, and then when we get a converter involved, it's going to run through there and wire into those same terminals. Alright, what we got here is a torque screwdriver, and it torques 2 inch-pounds, and you can see in the dial in there, a little red dial, I got it torqued to, or set at 20 inch-pounds. And according to the cover over here, these are approximately 12 gauge wire that they use for these DC circuits. So we'll just take our, of course you got to get the right tip. We got a Robinson square number 2, and these will either do like a flathead or a Robertson. So we're going to put our torque screwdriver on there and turn it until it clicks, and then we'll know we've got the exact torque rating that WFCO wants you to have for your 12 gauge wires. So that orange one's torqued now, and we'll just turn this for the yellow wire until it clicks. Alright, so these 2 wires here are at 20 inch-pounds, so we'll go ahead and install all the wires and do each one of them at 20 inch-pounds. These guys up here will be 25 inch-pounds. And then over here, again, depending on the gauge of the wire, should be about 20 inch-pounds on these. Our grounds are neutrals. And then the breakers for the hot wires, it'll just be whatever the breaker says the torque rating should be. And just to state the obvious, when you're putting your wires and your connectors there, you just want to make sure you're not getting any insulation between the screw and the wire. You want the screw that you're screwing down on with to be hitting nothing but bare copper wire, so you can get the ideal connection. We don't need bad connections or loose connections driving amperage up and burning anything. So Jason just restripped that wire there, which is a very good move. And he's going to stick it in that connector and torque her down 20 inch-pounds. Alright, Jason's running the Romex through the rear of the panel here, and you can see what kind of restraint, that they put on it. It's just a couple tension clasps that grab a hold of it. And he pulls them through like that, and then we got a ground wire right there that we need to run through to hook up to the ground bus. Now it's just a matter of wiring in our AC voltage lines, and then oh yeah, we got to wire in our big 6.3. That's what he just punched a hole for. That stuff is so hard to work with, so stiff. All right, so we've got our new inlet here, and my guy Austin is very ambitious, and I appreciate that, but he's got it wired in here. So you can see on the new inlet, they've even got it color coded for you. Got a red ring for the red wire, black ring for the black wire, green is our naked copper, and our white ring is for the white wire. Okay, and they do have a torque rating that comes in the paperwork that they want you to torque this to a certain specification, which is 22 to 25. I've got that set at about 22, 23, and we're just going to go around to each terminal here and make sure that it's where it needs to be. All right, so this is just the two clasps here, and we'll just screw it together. I'm going to kind of do it evenly, not all at once on each side, right? Old Ryobi's a squealer. All right. And once we got that on there, our compression gasket, we got our, now if you look in here, our two screws are like at what, 3 and 9 o'clock. So we're going to want to put our cup on where the screw threadings will be like at 3 and 9 o'clock. And of course the wire restraint's only going to let you do it one way, so it should be lined up right. And then I got to find a small flathead. All right, don't have to put a whole lot of mustard on it, it's just plastic. But now we have a inlet that's ready to rock and roll. So all we'll have to do is, after we clean this up, got our 4 screw holes here that go through the 4 holes on the rubber gasket. They go into the 4 wall holes in the wall. Not a lot to bite on down here. I hope everything, you know, I could stick a chunk of wood back here if it's going to be a problem. But that's the problem with these vacuum bonded walls. You know, there's hardly no wood and a lot of styrofoam. Okay, I know I didn't really show what was going on here, but we've got some wall rot here. I mean, the fiberglass is relatively good, a little bit of a crack in the fiberglass, but the styrofoam pretty corrupt inside from water intrusion. So what I did is I dug out the styrofoam right here, what was left of it, and put a little wood block in. As you can see right here, kind of notched out a little curve in it, and that way my screw holes for my inlet will have something to bite into. Over here it's still relatively healthy, so we're just going to roll with that. But we'll put our inlet in, screw, 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 and it should be ready to rock and roll. And then we'll put like maybe like a little bit of Proflex or silicone or cap seal or whatever around that to help keep the water from getting in anymore. So that's that. Now in an ideal scenario, that rubber gasket would be all you need, but this isn't ideal, so we're going to make the best of it. And don't want to put a lot of mustard on it because we don't want to strip it out. And that one right there feels like it's kind of stripped out. Yep, that one's a little stripped out. So these two guys over here are going to be doing the bulk of the work. All right, there we go. Go get us a little bit of sealant, run that around that guy, keep the water out, and this side of the job is done. just fastidious. All right. Now, since we've got tape here, that feels cured. One of the cool ways to do this is spray some glass cleaner on there and then just bulldoze it. But we have such a small area to work with. I'm just going to do it this way. I've got the tape on there so it doesn't look like dog crap when it's done. But we're just trying to keep more water from getting in. Take some of that and poke it down behind that hinge there. Okay, and we've got that sealed up, and then we can take our tape off. My guy Austin did the tape job, and he did a fantastic job. He just makes everything look so much more nice and new. Alright, and there you have it, a brand new power inlet. Let's go see what Jason's done on the breaker box side. I think he's got it wrapped up. Alright, well, this is where Jason's at currently. We got our breakers in. And we've got our 6.3 wired in, and looks like he's got all the circuits wired in. There's a couple DC things going on that we need to finish up. We did test the converter that the customer had in here already, and it works. So we're going to just reinstall his converter, wire it into our new panel, and that'll be a little chunk of money that he won't have to pay for. All right, well, our guy Jason got it done. We are all wired in, our AC wires, got all our DC wires wired in. We've got the customer's old power converter mounted back behind the our new panel here. And as soon as he can find a 50 amp post to plug into, he'll be ready to rock and roll. So, thank you again for checking us out. Hopefully you learned a little bit. Every job, it seems like there's always a little something that I learn. But please give us a thumbs up, a like, share, comment, subscribe. We'd consider that a great tip of gratuity if you would subscribe to our channel and give us a like. And we'll be back next time with another video.